What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 150 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Friday, March 27, 2026. I'm your host, Zach Malum. But before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of basketball as we have a massive Sweet 16 matchup down in Washington, D.C. this evening. A 7-10 start between the 5 seed in the East region, St. John's Red Storm, taking on the number 1 seeded Duke Blue Devils. A 7-10 start, and Duke comes into this game as 6.5-point favorites, total sitting at 140.5. St. John's biggest game of the season by far. They have to take down the top team in the country to make the Elite Eight, and it's not going to be easy for the Johnnies in this one. Of course, Duke's dealing with some injuries. Still no Caleb Foster, you would assume, in this game for the Blue Devils. Still dealing with that fracture in his foot from just a couple of weeks ago that he got surgery on. Still a long shot that he would play. Probably going to sit out for this game. But St. John's 30-6 on the year, up against 34-2 Duke. And I think the difference in this game has to be St. John's ability to hit shots from the outside. If St. John's can hit shots from the three-point line, it completely changes this game for Duke, who has to score on their own side against a tough St. John's defense. If St. John's can keep up with Duke in this game, though, on the offensive side of the ball, especially Cameron Boozer, who's lights out, probably an award winner at the end of the year throughout college basketball for a number of achievements. And I think when you look at the ability for St. John's to stop him, it's all going to come down to one man in Zuby Ejiofor. They're probably going to put Zuby on Cameron Boozer tonight, and Zuby's the defensive player of the year in the Big East, the Big East player of the year. He can definitely step up to this test. It's not going to be easy, though, and he has to really lock things down against Boozer tonight. I think when you look at the rest of St. John's strategy here, it has to be on defense. They have to lock down Cameron Boozer. If they're able to lock down Cameron Boozer, it forces some of those other Duke players to really score the ball. And you saw in a couple of games, the last couple of games especially, for the Blue Devils in this NCAA tournament, that if Cameron Boozer is not scoring, if he's struggling and some other guys need to be relied on, it's a different Duke Blue Devils team. And I think that's really what St. John's has to focus on tonight. I think that's definitely what Rick Pitino is looking at heading into this game. A guy who has just been lights out in his career in the Sweet 16, a phenomenal record. And when you look at St. John's and, of course, the recent history of St. John's, going out last year in the second round to Arkansas, they didn't get to this Sweet 16 stage. So getting to the second weekend maybe gives St. John's a little more juice heading into this one. And you got to control that, of course, heading into a game against Duke, where if you really get out of control, Duke will completely change the game and hurt you in the end. They have to really stay composed here. St. John's act like they've been there before. They've been in plenty of championship games the last couple of years, so that's something that you're looking at for St. John's to rely upon in this game against Duke. What a matchup it's going to be. A 7-10 start tonight. Make sure you tune in as the Red Storm try to knock off the number 1 team in the country. It's St. John's and Duke in D.C. tonight at 7:10. Staying in the world of basketball, but shifting things to the association, as the New York Knicks were in action last night. They were down in Charlotte taking on the Charlotte Hornets, and the Knicks lost that game 114-103, the final, to snap the Knicks' 7-game win streak where it stood. And, of course, the Knicks were going up against some really bad teams in terms of opponent record in this 7-game win streak. But Charlotte, who's been a really solid team, finally the Knicks play somebody good, and Charlotte made them pay, as Concanipple had 26 points in the game on 9 of 14 shooting. For the Knicks, on their side, it was Jalen Brunson who really got things going, 26 points, but only 10 of 23 shooting from the field. He did have 13 assists as well, though, in the game, and the rest of the Knicks just really not enough on the night. They shot 51% from the field, so that's a positive sign for New York, but they really could not keep hold of this Charlotte team, especially from beyond the arc, who hit 16 threes. Only 39% Charlotte shot the ball in this game, but I think when you're also looking at the ability to get to the free throw line, that was a clear difference in this one. Charlotte ends up taking 20 free throws in the game to just 9 for the New York Knicks. And of course, in the end, the Knicks can't play defense. They cannot stop their opponent from really going off. And of course, with Charlotte having 3 guys with 20 plus points in this game, Brandon Miller had 21. Concanipple, I mentioned him, had 26, and LaMelo Ball had 22. They also got contributions elsewhere. Miles Bridges with 17 points. Kobe White with 17 points off the bench as well. So the Knicks could not play well enough on the defensive side, and it hurt them in this game. They end up taking their first loss in a long time. And the Knicks go down, snap that 7-game win streak, but almost the beginning of the month, you got to look back a couple of weeks now when the Knicks last lost a game. And of course, now this Knicks team is heading into a very tough stretch. They got a couple of tough games on the road in their next couple. And those two games are really going to tell the story with the Knicks and how they're able to really formulate their seeding in the Eastern Conference heading towards the playoffs. Just under 10 games to go, and the Knicks still have to figure out where they will be seeded in the first round, whether they're the 3 seed, the 4 seed. They're trying to get the 2 seed, but it looks like Boston could pull away with a couple of games in hand. The Knicks do not have an easy test, though, and it starts on Sunday when the Knicks travel down to Oklahoma City, take on the defending champs, and it's Sunday night basketball at 7:30, and the Knicks are going up against a Thunder team that is red hot so far this season. I mentioned the defending champs, who are 29-6 on their home floor, 57-13 on the year. And of course, when you're looking at Chet Holmgren, he's out for the game tonight for the Thunder, but he could be back for the game on Sunday with a hip injury he's dealing with. And Landry Shamet's a game-time decision for the Knicks, still dealing with that knee injury. That's a 7:30 start, though, out in Oklahoma City. And the game after that, I'm going to preview that on Monday's episode, but when you look at Tuesday's game, it does not get any easier, and they take on a tough Houston Rockets team, 43-29 on the year, on the road down in Houston. I'll talk about that game on Monday, but the Knicks, their next 2 games really have to settle things down and get a couple of victories, try to find a way to get a couple wins, and that'll be huge for seeding in the future for this Knicks team as they head closer to the NBA playoffs. So make sure you tune in on Sunday night, the 7:30 start, as the Knicks travel to Oklahoma City to take on the Thunder. Shifting things to baseball, as both New York teams were in action in the last couple of days, and we start on Wednesday night as the Yankees traveled out to San Francisco for opening day against the San Francisco Giants, and the Yankees came out red hot to start the season. 7-0, they defeat the Giants on opening day on Netflix, and it was the Yankees who really stepped up in the second inning, put up a 5 spot against a dominant pitcher in Logan Webb, who gets charged with the loss on the day. 5 innings pitched, 9 hits allowed, 6 earned runs, 1 walk, and 7 Ks. And of course, the loss on one side for Logan Webb, a dominant outing on the other side for Max Fried, who gets the win, 6 1/3 innings with 2 hits allowed, no runs, with 1 walk and 4 Ks. Didn't have his best stuff, and he said that after the game, Max Fried, but he was so electric when he needed to be and made some big pitches, and the Giants lineup could not get to him at all. Only 2 hits allowed, 3 hits for the Giants total on the evening, and the Yankees really stepped up, especially on the offensive end. It wasn't the star power really at the top of the lineup. It was more the middle to bottom of the lineup that really stepped up for the Yankees in this one. Big contributors, Austin Wells, 2 for 3 in the game. You had Ryan McMahon, who had that huge 2-run single, in the second inning to almost break the game open and make it 3-0 Bombers. Trent Grisham had a huge hit, went 1 for 5 on the day, but the massive 2-run triple in the second inning as well to make it 5-0 was huge for the Yankees. And Giancarlo Stanton, middle of the lineup, 2 for 4 on the day, had an RBI single in the 5th inning. Yankees just continued to roll, and they also got a good day out of their bullpen behind Max Fried. When you look at Jake Bird, he was really good in this game. Only had 2/3 of an innings pitch, and ended up getting a strikeout, but 7 pitches, that's all it took, and completely mowed down the rest of that Giants lineup. They also had Hedrick and Doval come into the game later on, and they controlled things throughout. I think when you're looking at this Yankees lineup, of course, you want Aaron Judge to come out on opening day and hit 3 bombs, and you'd be happy. Aaron Judge went 0 for 5 in this game with 4 strikeouts. They still won 7-0. So Yankee fans got to be happy with that. Of course, they go into their next game, and that one is later today. It's a Friday afternoon game for the New York Yankees as they take on the San Francisco Giants. It's a 4:35 start, and it's going to be Cam Schlittler on the mound getting his season debut up against the lefty in Robbie Ray, who's coming off a phenomenal year for San Francisco. When you look at this Yankees team, just control things with Cam Schlittler on the mound, and they should be in good shape. Continue that offense, continue to get that offense rolling. They're going up against the lefty today, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for this Yankees team. For some guys, of course, a lefty type of lineup that the Yankees have, but they have, of course, a mix of both. So we'll see how Aaron Boone shakes out this lineup as the Yankees take on the Giants. It's a 4:35 start out at Oracle Park in San Francisco. On the other side of New York, the New York Mets were also in action. They were in action yesterday, though, and on their home field out at Citi Field, they took on the Pittsburgh Pirates for opening day, and it was all about the offense for the New York Mets in this one. They put up 11 runs and win it 11-7. But it was all about the first inning as well for this Mets team as they put up a 5 spot on another dominant pitcher. Both New York teams really getting to some of the top level pitchers in all of baseball. Paul Skeens this time, though, the NL Cy Young winner from last season, doesn't even get out of the first inning. 2/3 of an inning, 4 hits allowed, 5 earned runs with 2 walks and just 1 strikeout. It was a Bo Bichette sac fly. It was a 3-run triple by Brett Baty, and then it was an RBI double for Marcus Semien to make it 5-2 Mets. It did not start off strong for New York in terms of their pitching with Freddie Peralta, who let up a home run, a 2-run shot on just the second batter of the game. Brandon Lau took him deep, and of course, Brandon Lau also took Freddie Peralta deep to right center in the 3rd inning, but it didn't matter because the Mets offense was rolling throughout, and give credit to another look at the bottom of the order. That's really where it came from for this Mets team. Of course, Juan Soto had a solid day. Bo Bichette had an RBI, so did Jorge Polanco. But Luis Robert Jr. starting at the 5 spot, 2 for 4 on the day, couple RBIs. Brett Baty, 1 for 5 on the day, 3 RBIs with that triple. Marcus Semien had a double. He was 2 for 5 with an RBI. And then you had Carson Bench, 1 for 3, gets his first major league hit and his first major league home run. You look at Francisco Alvarez as well, the 9-hitter, 2 for 4 on the day, and a monster shot into the left field seats as he gave the Mets a 11-5 lead at the time. Of course, the Pirates scored a couple more runs in the top of the 9th, but it was 11-7, and the Mets win their opening day game. They've won 3 of their last 5 opening day games now, the Mets have. And Freddie Peralta was a big storyline coming in. Talking about Freddie Peralta, though, he didn't have his best stuff on the day. 80 pitches, he allowed 4 earned runs on the afternoon, but you're looking at Freddie Peralta going, okay, well, it can only go up from here, especially in his opening day start. And really, -2 pitches in the end that really got away from him to Brandon Lau. That's really the difference for Freddie Peralta. He gave up a couple bombs, and that was the difference for the Mets ace on the day. 5 innings, though, 80 pitches. Don't need to stretch him too much, especially with the Mets having a lead early on in the game. 7 strikeouts. You like to see that, and that's really what Freddie Peralta is looking for in his next couple outings. Get those strikeout numbers up, and of course, if he makes just a couple better pitches, he's got a real solid outing against this Pirates team. So the Pirates are scrappy, and of course, they proved that early on, but the Mets really fought right and tooth and nail right back and really showed Paul Skeens who's boss in this situation. Paul Skeens struggled. Of course, it is opening day, so Pirates fans can freak out just yet. They still got a solid team to go around this year. But Paul Skeens, an outing to forget, the first time in his career that he didn't get out of the first inning. I mean, the first time this year, when you look at just the numbers compared to last year, he allowed 3 earned runs total in the first inning a season ago. He allowed 5 earned runs in the first inning in just opening day against the New York Mets. So the Mets continue to roll on. They have a couple more games in this 3-game set against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the next game is on Saturday. It's a 4:10 start tomorrow with David Peterson getting the ball after a very solid first half of the season a season ago. He was an all-star for the Mets, complete drop-off for the lefty at the end of last year, and he's going up against Mitch Keller, the righty, for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So looking to continue to roll. The Mets are continue to get this offense rolling. If they can really battle like they did, they had 9 walks in the game against the Pirates on Thursday. They also had 11 hits on the afternoon. If they could do that every game, I mean, this is going to be a very, very tough lineup to get through when you look at this New York Mets team and the additions that they added in this offseason. So we'll see what happens. Make sure you tune in to the rest of this series, and we'll recap it on Monday's episode. But make sure you tune in tomorrow. It's a 4:10 start in the afternoon as the Mets host the Pirates for the second game of the 3-game set at Citi Field. Let's finish things off today out on the island and in the world of hockey as the New York Islanders got a massive win on Thursday night, a 2-1 win over the Dallas Stars. And the Islanders get a huge win after a massive loss a couple of nights before that. Tuesday night, they were taken down by the Chicago Blackhawks 4-3 at UBS Arena, and a Blackhawks team that was really struggling heading into the game. The Islanders take a bad loss after they were up 49 seconds in. They were up 1-0. And then the Blackhawks had 4 unanswered goals. The Islanders fought back with 2 goals in the third, and they were down 4-3 midway through the third, but it wasn't enough for this Islanders team, and they lose 4-3 to the Blackhawks. But they respond with a massive win on Thursday, like I mentioned. Ilya Sorokin really stepped up for the Isles in this one, 26 saves on the evening. Matthew Schaefer had a couple of assists in the game on Bo Horvat's goal in the first, Callum Ritchie's goal in the third. Matt Duchene responded with a goal for the Stars late in the third period, and the Islanders ended up holding on for a huge, huge win, chasing a playoff spot and against a Stars team that already clinched a playoff spot of their own this season. A very good Dallas Stars team, and the Islanders are able to find a win. So give the Islanders credit. They stood strong. They found a victory against a tough opponent, and they have to keep going as right now you look at the standings in the Eastern Conference, and the Islanders sit in the second wild card spot in the East right now with 1 game played more than the teams behind them. Ottawa has 72 games played and 86 points. The Isles have 73 games played with 87 points. They also are fighting with Boston, who's around them, 72 games played, 88 points. They are in the first wild card spot. But the real focus for me is on the Metropolitan Division. They got a couple of teams right next to them. Pittsburgh, who's in second place right now in the Metro. They have 88 points with 72 games played. And then Columbus, who has 87 points and 72 games played. If the Islanders win their games, they just focus on Columbus or Pittsburgh, and they should be in good shape. I think that's really what you're looking at for this Islanders team. You hope that Columbus or Pittsburgh slips up a little bit. But of course, the Islanders, every single time I say it about this Islanders team this season, they play bad against bad teams. They play down to their level and ultimately lose some bad games. If the Islanders want to win in the playoffs, of course, it's not a bad sign that they play very well against good teams. But if you're going into the postseason, you have to have your best game every single night. The Islanders do not have that right now, but hopefully it'll get better as the games go on. They're fighting tooth and nail. Every single game is basically the Stanley Cup final for the New York Islanders at this point. They have to keep fighting, and they have to do so again tomorrow afternoon as they host the Florida Panthers at UBS Arena. It's a 1 o'clock start. Islanders favored coming into the game. Florida, of course, near the bottom of the Eastern Conference this season, and they're last right now in the Atlantic Division, but 73 points still. They have a record over 500 somehow, 71 games into the season. Just tells you how good these teams have been in the East this year. But Florida, a team that's going to give you a fight no matter what. They're probably out of the playoff picture, but they're not going to make it easy for this Islanders team. They have to be strong, the Islanders do, and have to rack up some wins, some very tough games down the stretch for this Islanders team, and they have to continue to win games. You look towards those last 4 games of the season: Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Carolina. Every one of those games taking place at UBS Arena. You also have a couple of games coming up after this Florida game. Pittsburgh at UBS Arena on Monday is probably the Islanders' biggest game of the season. I think when you're looking at it, you talked about the Islanders and their biggest game of the season a couple of days ago or last week with the Columbus Blue Jackets when they came to town, but the Islanders won that game. Now it's on to the next biggest game of the season with the Pittsburgh Penguins going to UBS Arena on Monday. So we'll preview that game on Monday's episode. The focus right now for the Islanders tomorrow against the Florida Panthers, 1 o'clock start out in Belmont. So make sure you tune into that one. But that will do it for episode 150 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malum, thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Monday.